Good morning, LBC Radio. My name is Corey Rosen with the Story Podcast. Today I have a lovely guest, Mr. Doctor, not Mr.
Mr. Doctor.
Mr. Doctor Robert Bigley. Dr. Robert Bigley enjoys a multifaceted career that seems to broaden with each new season of life. He is the founding director of the Trust Performing Arts Center and director of choral and vocal studies at Lancaster Bible College, where he conducts the college chorale, chamber singers. His ensembles frequently collaborate with other musical groups, including modern Irish hymn writers Keith and Kristyn Getty, Dove Award-winning artist Michael Card, international recording artist Declan O'Rourke.
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 Declan O'Rourke. He's an Irish boy.
I cannot roll my R's for the life of me. 3 years of Spanish have done nothing for me. We've also worked with the Grammy-nominated ensemble New York Polyphony.
Nice.
I promise, I have a composition degree. As well as the Lancaster Symphony Orchestra, Opera Lancaster, and even an appearance on the Christmas album of the Grammy-nominated metalcore band August Burns Red.
Yes.
He has taught middle school, high school, community college, and four-year college in both private and public institutions that was twice listed in Who's Who among America's teachers. Bigley has conducted a variety of ensembles throughout the years, including the Greater Miami Youth Symphony, Opera Lancaster, the Cascade Symphony, the Orquesta, Sinfónica, María, the Bohórquez, Barcelona, and has led concert tours around the world, including Ireland, China, Spain, with his LBC choirs. He has acted on screen and stage in productions throughout the country, most recently with the historic Fulton Theater, Prima Theater, and Servant Stage Company. Dr. Bigley holds degrees from the University of Washington, the Eastman School of Music, and the University of Miami. He is married to the pianist and music director, and might I say, a wonderful woman.
Yes.
Kendra Bigley. So, with all that said...
Podcast is over. We're out of time. Thank you very much, folks.
All right, well, this is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What first got you inspired to do music?
Oh, probably my mom. So my mom was a beautiful folk singer. She still is a singer. She's still beautiful. She played guitar and sang folk music. And my uncle, her younger brother, and another guy had a trio when I was growing up, a little folk trio when I was growing up. And so that was probably my first exposure to, performance. I was five. Yeah. And then 4 or 5. And then soon thereafter, the kindergarten where I attended put on a little play, and I was cast as the lead. And so there's pictures of this somewhere. I remember I was a knight, and they made my helmet out of a milk cart, like a gallon jug.
Oh yeah, of course.
And cutaway was important. And then wrapped it with tin foil, and that might have been the extent of my costume. I don't remember, but somehow I got the acting bug, and the music bug at an early age.
Well, that's awesome. So obviously, I'm not going to say obviously like I know, but then I guess you grew out through your schools doing plays and then eventually musicals.
Yeah. I started doing. I played Oliver when I was like 8 years old in the musical Oliver at a local production. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, and then I started doing commercials when I was a kid.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was really fun. I can remember I was 8, and I had not started playing baseball yet. I don't want your audience to think that I'm actually a baseball player. I played Little League because my stepfather made me, but it was good. I mean, anyway. So the coolest thing about the commercial is that my character was on a baseball team, and I got to wear a baseball uniform, and I remember that was really cool.
That's pretty cool.
It was for T.G. Lee Dairy in Florida. They're still around. It would sort of be like Turkey Hill here.
Gotcha.
And so it was for their chocolate milk, and the company was called T.G. Lee. So the product was called Chalk-O Lee.
Of course.
And so in the middle of the O was my cherubic little 8-year-old face as part of the logo.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I can't find any evidence of this anywhere. So maybe I dreamed it all, but I'm pretty sure it was real.
That's so interesting. How do you even find the? Because that's one thing I've always wanted to know. How does one even find that? Did your parents have to find it? I assume so. You didn't find it yourself.
Actually, I think that the casting director for that came to the production of Oliver that I was in, because it was right around the same time. It was the same month or so.
So it must have been.
Yeah. So I was discovered.
So did your acting career just grow from there?
No.
Did it crash down?
It ended right there. No, I got more interested like in band. When I went to middle school, I got interested in band, started playing the trumpet, and I went through my awkward stage. And, my mom was awesome, and she was encouraging me to do things, and she was sort of my manager. I remember, it's laughable now, but I think I got paid $75 for that commercial. It was a TV commercial. I was also on the radio, and I was on billboards.
Oh, wow.
And so looking back on that was an atrociously small amount to get paid.
Right.
But my mom talked them up from $50. So,
well, hey.
So she did a great job as my manager in that moment. No, and then, I don't think it's interesting now because I know a lot more about the industry. So like the opportunities that my kids have had, a lot of them are because we knew what to do, and my mom didn't grow up in the industry. She didn't know what to do. And I never had a manager or anything like that. So I didn't really do much more than that, except for school productions. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was doing more musicals and played Harold Hill in The Music Man my senior year of high school.
Oh, nice.
And, but then, all along I had been going back and forth between, doing ensembles as a singer and as a trumpet player. And by the time I went to college, I imagined myself a singer-songwriter, and I thought I wanted to be Billy Joel. So I went to the University of Miami, which had a great pop program at the time. And I got there, and I was about 2 years in, and I realized that at this one school, there was about 3 or 4 Billy Joels better than me.
Oh, God.
So I looked around. I had sort of this crisis. I wasn't yet a believer, but I had this crisis of career, if not a crisis of faith. And I looked around and I thought, okay, well, what can I do better than anyone else I know my age? And I had been conducting since I was a junior in high school. My high school choir director saw these leadership skills in me and wanted to give me the opportunity to grow in those. And so she allowed me to conduct the high school choir and got to take them to festivals and, got a superior at state and all that jazz. And so I thought, well, okay, by the time my sophomore year of college rolled around, I decided, okay, I'm going to be a conductor.
Fair enough.
And so then opportunities started to come along. And it's actually neat because LBC is doing the production of Into the Woods in the fall.
Yep.
And as a junior in college, I conducted the very first college production of that 30-something years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I'm excited to see it on our stage. I'm not conducting it this time around. I decided it was too much to take on in the fall, but I love that show, and that was the first show that I ever conducted.
You said, I've done it once, I can't do it again.
But here's the thing, it's like your experience, like you sort of announce that you're a composer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then these opportunities come along, and people are like, hey, Corey, you should write this thing.
Right, yeah.
This thing. And the same thing for me in college. I was like, I'm a conductor. And so I had these opportunities. Somebody was doing their senior trombone recital and asked me to conduct a little string orchestra that went with it. And so I got to conduct a 20th century trombone concerto, and Into the Woods and all these other opportunities. So
It's so interesting that you kind of had like the imposter syndrome when you came to college, because I very much had that.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I came in as a percussionist, and I also came in with Matt Cross.
Oh, so, yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Matt Cross he's insanely talented on the drums.
Yeah.
And I also came in with Zach Fernback, this quadruple threat dude, like good looks, can dance, good singer, and can dance.
Right.
I think that's the
actor.
Yes. So there's the
He's
4.
a triple threat plus the good looks.
Insanely good looks, yeah. And then like Matthew Wilhelm and Britt Jarkowski, like all these like powerhouse musicians.
Right.
I'm like, why am I here? How did I get in? And
you found a place though.
I did find a place, yes. I found a place with only one other student, Lane Burkholder.
Oh,
Who was also like miles ahead of me in anything that I had never really written anything before I came here.
Okay. Did you come in as a comp major?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
Well, so the school messed up a little bit. I auditioned as a comp major. But somehow they classified me as a
Percussion performance.
percussion
I
performance.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't remember, and it got to the point where I started doing percussion and composition lessons at the same time. But if I'm in all honesty, I'm really happy that happened because my percussion, like I didn't like to practice. So my percussion score, and I just didn't really want to do percussion because I felt so. I literally roomed with Matt Cross too.
Wow.
So yeah. So it was like it was. He's an awesome dude. I love him to death. He's one of my best friends. But it's slightly discouraging when you have a Matt Cross who can absolutely do fine on like a 6-beat set, and I can barely hold a beat on a drum set.
Right.
I was more of the auxiliary percussionist.
Sure.
Yeah, I almost got kicked out of school because of my low GPA for the performance side.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was only my composition stuff that saved my butt.
Yeah.
With that, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's God pruning, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So you went to college. You got this conducting job. What goes on from there? How do you? Because I remember you saying something about going to Seattle, like Washington.
Well, yeah, that's a few steps ahead. But so yeah, so I that same within months of me making that decision to become a conductor, I assume completely unrelated, but God's sovereign, and I have no idea. That summer was when I became a believer. So the summer between my sophomore and junior year, it was actually my music theory professor that led me to the Lord. And his name is Bob Gower. He's still a working composer. He's retired from the university, but he's the music director at a big church down in Miami, and we still stay in touch. So I'm really grateful for his ministry. And I think that it was that experience during that crucial time of life that really gave me a heart for college students. And I think that's why I've invested by far most of my career as a college professor. So I went straight from the University of Miami. When I decided to become so I was a music business major in undergrad, and it was actually called Music Media and Industry. And I did that because I thought I wanted to produce my own records. Like I said, I wanted to be Billy Joel, right? So when I decided to become a conductor, a lot of people tried to talk me into switching to music ed, but I knew that was going to take extra time, and I just didn't want to do that. So I graduated with a Bachelor of Music and Music Business, and then went straight to my master's degree at the Eastman School of Music in conducting.
Okay.
And at the time, they had a combined program of choral and orchestral conducting, because I thought I wanted to do both. And that's where I met my wife. She was finishing her undergrad in piano performance, and we were both involved in the same Christian ministry there. And that's how we got connected. And so we got married right after we graduated and moved to Miami, where my first job was. So I moved back to I swore I'd never live in Florida again. And it's important for your audience to know that don't swear at those things.
No.
Because
you're always going to be pulled back one way or another.
God has such a great sense of humor when it comes to that stuff. What is that old saying? If you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right, yeah.
So all I knew was that I didn't want to live in Florida again, and then we ended up living for 4 years in Miami. But it was a really fruitful time for us, and our first 2 kids were born there, and I grew a lot as I was the music director for a prep school down there, a really ritzy prep school. And they paid their faculty terribly, but somehow we had these huge budgets. And so I got to do all sorts of neat stuff there. And
that's cool.
And then I was also director of the Miami Youth Symphony, the Greater Miami Youth Symphony, while I was down there. And so it was great, but it was a rough time to be in Miami, and a lot of crime, and crack cocaine was still a thing.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that, because that's what, I forget how old you are, but that's like...
Yeah, it was mid-90s, mid to late 90s, yeah. So we prayed for an opportunity to move to the Northwest, which is where my wife is from. She's from Eugene, Oregon. And so a job came open at a community college in Seattle to be director of choral activities. And the community colleges out in the Northwest, it's sort of a different system there, but it definitely does feel like the first 2 years of college. And we had a really dynamic program, And so I was there for a decade, and it was just a wonderful experience.
So then what draw you to Lancaster, PA?
Okay, so while I was out there, I became friends with a man named Dan Hollingsworth, who at the time was a missionary sent from our church, and he was in Spain, and he was a former professional trumpet player and was doing all sorts of cool stuff in Spain. And he and a writing partner did the very first Spanish translation of Handel's Messiah, the first complete translation. So I got to know him, and so he and I worked in Spain together. Soon thereafter, he took a job at Lancaster Bible College, and he was charged with starting the music worship, what became the music worship and performing arts department. I was at the time doing my doctorate at the University of Washington out in Seattle, and so once he started this department, they said, "Hey, if you want to hire somebody to start a music performance program, we'll let you do that." And so he called me up, and make a long story short, we piled up our family of 5 and the dog and drove across the country to Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 2007. So we've been here ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, that's a long time.
Yeah. This is my 15th year at LBC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess 2010 was that long
Yeah.
Back then I was just a middle schooler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No.
Were you aware of LBC at the time?
Oh, no. So my journey of LBC was really a God-given one. I had been into a really, really, really bad relationship.
Okay.
To the point where it was just brokenness every single day.
Mm.
And
Did you grow up in this area?
No, I grew up in Salisbury, Maryland.
Okay.
So like right off the coast of Ocean City.
Gotcha.
And my pastor had just randomly was like, "Oh, by the way, you're like a senior in college, right? There's this college fair happening at Salisbury Christian School. Why don't you check it out?" And I was like, Christian schools, whatever. But I was like, you know what? I got to go to college somewhere, so why not? So I went to this random school I've never ever been to. I've only heard rumors about. And there was Cairn there. There was all these other universities that I can't remember the name of.
They're not important.
They're not important. LBC was important because LBC whatever they do for the recruiters is amazing. Because
really?
The recruiters are absolutely awesome, and they do their job very well.
Wow, I'm so glad to hear that. Good.
Because they pulled me right in because Karen had their like music engineering degree.
Okay.
But funnily enough, the reason why I was turned off of Karen was because it was in Philadelphia, and I know I've been around Philadelphia long enough to be like, I don't want to stay in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So I know Lancaster a little bit. I had known that it was like Amish country. I known it was more like country-esque.
Right.
And I love living in the country as well. I'm not a very big city folk. I've been to New York at that point a few times, and I was like, yeah, this is a lot. And it was during the Occupy Wall Street, so it was even more of a lot than what it usually is.
Yeah.
But granted, at the time I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know about it. I was only like 8 or 9, 10. But so I just chose that, and funnily enough, my grandmother and my dad didn't want me to come out here because they were like, "Well, you're just gonna do like drugs and drink and party," and I'm like, "Dad, it's a Christian school, first off." And my grandmother was like, "Well, it's gonna be 3 hours away. That's so long." And then she came up to me and was like, "Yeah, that was a stupid argument. I went to college 6 hours away from my parents back in like the 60s," and I was like, "Really? You're gonna argue with me?"
Right.
I was like, "Come on."
That's a good distance because you could, if the laundry pile gets too high, you could always
just
go home
back
for the
home.
weekend.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I did for a little bit. The strangest part to me is that they wanted me to go to Salisbury University, which was known as a party hard college.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know what their line of logic was, but they let me go here, and that's kind of, and my life became a lot better for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you ended up here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we had talked. So you've been a teacher for at least over 25 years.
Yes, this is next year will be my 30th year teaching.
So you've had a multitude of students by now.
I have, yeah. I started counting them a few years ago. I started counting them up, and I got well over 1,000. I was like, never mind.
I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So, what is one thing that students make plenty of mistakes in their life? What is one mistake that you've kind of maybe seen a trend of between like music theater and whatever other students you have had?
I would say one of the things, especially since the vast majority of my teaching has been in the arts and a lot of it in musical theater, performance-based things, is I'm not sure that I'd say to answer your question directly, the mistake that a lot of students make is they are unwilling to be realistic about who God has created them to be, especially as a performer. I see it all the time in musical theater of students not embracing their quote unquote type. And as much as, there's the good arguments that maybe there shouldn't be types, there are. And so if you look, sound a certain way, then you're going to be playing certain characters. And the sooner you can embrace that, the more successful you're going to be. A great example of that is a really good friend of mine is Ben Brewer, who is an actor. He's performed at Sight and Sound.
Relation to Kristyn Brewer?
Kristyn's husband, yeah. And he is sort of a bigger guy, and he has a long beard. He looks like he would be in a motorcycle gang or something. And he and I we were at a wedding last night, and he and I were just talking about this last night, that once he embraced his type and realized, okay, I'm not going to be playing the charming leading guy. I'm better off as the motorcycle gang guy, or
the big strong man.
Yeah. He's going to be playing the Gimli characters in Lord of the Rings, not the Strider characters, right? And once he realized that, he started to work like crazy. He just leaned into that, and he started to work like crazy. And if you see, especially if you're in the acting world, if you see that world as a believer, if you see that as your mission field, then you need to do whatever you need to do to get into that field. And if you're just going to insist on if you look a certain way and you sound a certain way, and you're like, I only want to play the leading man who gets the girl, and you don't look or sound that way, then you're not going to have a career.
Right.
And I can't have those. I don't feel like I have the license to have those conversations directly with students a lot of the times. So I'll say it to your general audience: be self-aware and ask other people who will tell you the truth, what your type is. And then also when it comes to talent, God entrusts you with talent when you're born, and then when you get saved, He entrusts you with spiritual gifts, right? And you have to be sort of aware of both of those things. And so I've had students that just don't have the baseline talent to have a career as a performer. And I try to give really subtle hints all along, and they don't pick up on them. And I'm like, okay, well, it's, I tried. Yeah. There's only been one time when I was teaching at the community college out in Seattle. There's a woman. I was a young professor in community college. Students are typically a multitude of ages, and so this woman was quite a bit older than me, and she was taking a voice class that I was teaching, and she couldn't match pitch. She just didn't have the basic talent to be able to match pitch, and she was sure that she was going to be a singer-songwriter and have a massive career as this. And I finally said to her, I think it's maybe one of the only times I've had this direct of a conversation. I said, listen, I hope that someday you'll win a Grammy Award and you'll be able to say, this goes out to Rob Bigley, who didn't believe in me and said I could never do it. Then I said, but that's not going to happen. You just don't. If you're passionate about this industry, find a different way to be in the industry. But it's not going to be as a singer. I'm so sorry to tell you that. It's just not going to be that. And she was so mad and didn't speak to me ever again. So I try to be a little more subtle now with that. But I think self-awareness is something that a lot of college students lack. And I would say, especially a lot of Christians, because we don't go through the gristmill of harsh criticism.
Right.
One of the jokes that I say around here is that there's just way too much grace around here.
Sometimes there is. Yes, you are right.
And I think that what we need to hear is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I sought that one time with a director friend of mine who is one of the most successful directors around. And I said, you know what? Would you ever see the possibility of me just having a full-time acting career? Because I've often talked about, after I retire, it'd be fun to play the old guy in all the TV shows. And he said, yeah, but there's one thing that holds you back. And I said, what's that? He says, you suck at memorizing. You're a terrible memorizer.
Are you?
I am a terrible memorizer. And he says, but that's not the issue. The issue is that you don't know how to work around that. And so he actually gave me some skills and actually introduced me to an app that helps the memorization. He said, he's worked with Broadway performers that are also terrible memorizers, but they know it, and they know how to work ahead. When they get casted in a role, they ask for a PDF of the script months in advance so they can start working on it. And so by the time they show up for rehearsal, they're memorized. In the last show that I had been in with him, now I have since been cast in another show that he directed, and I felt like I got actually two more since then. I got to prove to him, okay, I've learned my lesson, but that criticism was so important to me.
It changed it. Yeah.
It did. It changed me as a person. It changed me as a professional. It gave me the opportunity to work in ways that I never would have been able to.
It probably helped a lot of your life.
Exactly. And had it not been for that really direct criticism, I probably wouldn't have worked for him again,
Yeah.
And so and not working for this director means, frankly, not working as a professional actor.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So, you had talked about realizing that there's mistakes. When I came here, I had just been off the cusp of. I was Shrek in the Shrek the Musical.
Fun.
Yeah, and I was backup for Beast, and I've done I was the jester in Once Upon a Mattress.
Wonderful.
So I came in with this hot head of all hot heads, as most students do, and then I started realizing that my voice I was a part of a very local, very small high school, and I was probably maybe second best for that.
Okay.
Because I come here and I'm hearing all these people sing, and it's like I'm listening to myself sing, and I'm like, ooh, I'm sharp and flat in all these areas, and these people can really hit their pitches really well. It's just minor intonation stuff that gets done away with within like the first 2 years of college.
Right. Well, you would hope it would.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Although, if you're going to play some of the videos I sent you, you'll hear that I'm a little pitchy on one of my notes too.
I did hear a little bit of that.
But it was live. What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Yeah. Right. Exactly. So it's always humbling to, and no one outright told me I shouldn't be singing, but it was always in the back of my mind that, and that's kind of why I was kind of almost hesitant to join Chorale. I really wanted to join Chorale because I wanted to fix my singing, and knowing you, I know that you give very good direction for your chorale singers. So it was kind of my pre-lesson lessons. That's
great.
If you will.
No, that's good to hear.
And then I took lessons with Jeffrey Martin, and I feel like that has improved me more than it would not have.
Of course, yeah. Well, and so you have that self-awareness that a lot of students don't have. So good for you. Praise God for that.
Yes, I'm always people are like, why don't you sing your songs? Like, well, I can't because it's not going to sound good. I'll play the piano to them, and you can sing them because you can sing all day and night, but it's not going to be me.
Yeah.
So, knowing all of this now, what is one thing that you know now that you would wish you had known when you had first started?
If
you could tell.
Well, I definitely had the self-awareness thing. Like, that's what enabled me my sophomore year without any feedback from anyone else to decide I sort of like you looking
Right.
around like I don't, that's not me. I don't got that. I got some feedback sort of too late in college. That's not true. It's never too late. But anyway, I love being a conductor. I love being a teacher, but my heart, my people have always been in the theater.
Mm.
And I was a little bit, I didn't have the courage to pursue that as a career. And I sometimes wish that I had. And I think that was one of the things that I definitely had mentors that, I don't know if they tried to tell me this or not, but I never had the courage to push through the hard things to be successful. And I know that you talked about maybe later talking about this, but it wasn't until I did something completely out of the box when I ran for office that gave me the courage to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. I'm fail or succeed, I'm just gonna do it.
That was a large inspiration for this podcast, actually, because I had been planning this for over like a year, but it was just a matter of I'm such a visionary.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Having a musical, having all these different big old plans that aren't really realistic to some extent.
Okay.
But they can be,
right,
if you just do it.
Yeah.
So all I literally had to do was ask the owner of this, or the Ryan Giesman, if I could borrow the radio studio, and he said yes, and I was like, now I have this like multi-million-dollar setup almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much this costs, but I assume it's a lot.
It's more than I got.
It's more than I would ever have to set up, to start at least.
Yeah, good for
you. So yeah, if you really want to do something, the first step is, I believe, it's reaching out. Yeah, because I'm gonna have the future guest director of operations of the AMT.
Oh, cool.
And you know Wally.
Yes.
Wally from Sermon Stage. I'm gonna have him on soon, and literally all it was just I typed a message to them through Messenger, and they responded.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for the bigger opportunities just because I went and did it.
Yeah.
So what was the purpose behind you going into politics?
So one of my best friends from college lives in Montgomery County, just outside of Philadelphia. And it's funny because when we were in school together, he was the school of music's representative to the student council at University of Miami, where we went to undergrad. And so he's always had politics in the back of his mind. But he was working for the Kimmel Center at the time in Philadelphia back in 2016. And this was when our state legislature had not passed a budget for a year and a half because they just couldn't agree on anything. And he's a Democrat, and he said to me, "Hey, Bigley, why don't you run as a Republican for State House of Representatives in Lancaster, and I'll run as a Democrat in Montgomery County, and we'll get to Harrisburg and show these guys how to work together." And so I was like, "Huh, all right." So I talked to my wife about it. We prayed about it, and I kept expecting a huge barrier to come up and stop me from doing it, and it just never happened. And I just kept going, and I lost the race, but it was the most valuable experience, one of the most valuable experiences of my adult life.
How many valuable connections have you made or lost because of your politics?
I don't think I've lost any.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I made hundreds and hundreds. I knocked on 10,000 doors, so I literally met thousands of the people in my community. And the district that I was seeking to represent is the 96th district, which at the time, it actually just changed a month ago, but at the time was basically the city limits of Lancaster City. And we live in the city. And so I got to meet neighbors right around me and neighbors on the other side of town and people of all walks of life. And it was just incredible. And nothing builds your courage more than being forced to knock on a stranger's door, not being an Amazon delivery man, like, right. To talk to them about politics. It was incredible. And I had so many friends that walked with me, and then at all these social events, meeting people, it was just just incredible. It was just incredible.
So nothing really negative entirely?
No, I mean, so here's the thing. I was a moderate Republican at the bottom of the ticket where Donald Trump was the top of the ticket.
Right.
For his first campaign. And I had, first of all, had no idea who the presidential nominee was going to be when I started running, because I started running in February and the convention didn't happen until the summer. So I had no idea what a challenge it was going to be. So I had a lot of, I'm not sure I would say I was a never Trumper, but I was not a Trump fan. And so I had a lot of internet trolls from all around the country that were trolling me online. Mm. And one of the amazing things that I learned is that if you treat people like people, like people that carry the image of God, rather than somebody who is just some random person from Texas, some random message from Texas. What happened was, when the whole thing came out about the accusations about the way that he treated women, that Trump treated women, I, being a husband and a father of two daughters, and I was like, I just can't have my name associated with this guy. And I had, as I told you before the podcast, I had been, a conservative independent, but I became a Republican to run.
Yeah.
And so that night I went and I pulled my campaign signs from the lawn of the Republican headquarters in downtown. I had just been hearing on the news about all these allegations against Trump and the way that he was treating women. And I happened to be driving to Dominion Pizza to watch a football game with my son. And I drove by the Republican headquarters and I saw my signs there, and right next to Trump's signs. And I thought, I just can't. And so I went on Facebook Live and just explained why I couldn't do this and pulled my signs. And boy, did it cause an uproar. And I learned a lot from that too. But then I got some national attention, and that's where these trolls from around the country started to comment on my Facebook page about how who they thought I was for doing that. Right. And so I started messaging those people individually offline, and not commenting on their comments, but just messaging offline, and had really wonderful conversations with people just through text message, through Messenger, Facebook Messenger. And all of them, there was probably a couple dozen, all of them pulled down their comments. Every single one of them, after we messaged. And I just explained to them the situation and who I was and
why.
And they couldn't believe, number one, that a candidate would reach out to them individually, and number two, that they were being treated like a human. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing happened. Excuse me. The same thing happened with somebody locally who I had met, and they were actually a Democrat, and they were accusing me of being a certain kind of person. And so I invited them out to coffee, and we sat and had coffee together. And again, they changed the way they talked about me.
It's insane what happens when you actually treat somebody like a person instead of just like an object.
Right.
Because it becomes so much more personable.
Yeah.
Because behind a screen, you can message anybody and say anything without any recourse.
Right.
And oftentimes they're not going to respond.
Right.
So it's I truly believe one way to, for societal change is to treat others like actual human beings instead of vilifying them for, because there's a reason behind every policy. There's it's like, have you ever heard of Daryl Davidson?
Mm-mm. No.
He's a guy. He's a black musician who made his way to fame by going to KKK rallies and de-radicalizing actual neo-Nazis and actual white heavy white supremacists. He has collected over, I think, 200 to 300 hoods.
Wow.
Yeah. And the way he did it,
guys that surrendered their hoods to them,
of guys who surrendered hoods to him, and he said that you just gotta treat them like people,
right? And
they have their legit reasons. It's just all missing context,
right?
Like the statistics: 50%, 13%, those statistics that
Yeah.
that are out there that are misrepresented and can be misconstrued to these racist beliefs.
Right.
So he just went out there and talked to them, and they gave up their hoods. They
Yeah.
gave up their So it's really interesting how you can just go to somebody, talk to them,
Yeah.
talk for them just a little bit, and change their entire worldview because now they know you. You're not just a random person.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not sure if I mean, what he did was far more noble than what I
Oh,
did.
for
I
sure.
was basically defending
yeah.
my own honor, but I do feel like that I was able to touch people at the humanity level. We're all made in the image of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we start there, then everyone carries beauty and kindness with them somewhere.
Right.
And reasonableness.
And reasonableness at some point, yes.
Yeah.
So talking about differing opinions, how do you, because you're in the theater world is secular in some areas.
Sure.
How do you deal with being a Christian in a non-Christian environment?
Well, I would say like anyone that works anywhere other than the church or a Bible college.
Right.
So we are carriers of the gospel wherever we go. And I feel like for me, my mission field, if you will, for anyone, your mission field is the people that you're around.
Mm-hmm.
And unless, God calls you to go somewhere extremely different, a different country or what have you, we are carriers of the gospel wherever we go. And so we have to live out the first things of the gospel wherever we are. And, following Christ, living in the way that honors Christ, in a way worthy of the gospel with which we've been called, the calling with which we've been called,
Mm-hmm.
Wherever we are. And so for me, I have a lot of friends, a lot of alumni from here who feel that they're calling, and that's the term calling is something that's I'm uncomfortable with, but their assignment is to be at Sight and Sound, where the ministry is clearly happening on stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stories that they tell are literally the Bible.
Yes.
And I think the assumption is that most, if not all, the people that they're working with are also Christians. And so the gospel message they're delivering is on stage. For me, I feel like working in mainly secular settings gives me the opportunity to be able to be a carrier of the gospel backstage in the dressing room and having conversations with people that I love about the person that I love the most.
Right.
And so it's not intimidating to me at all. Just like if you have a family member that works in an office, working for, I don't know, for T-Mobile or whatever, like it's a quote unquote secular environment. It's not an environment that has been set apart to be owned and operated by Christians. It takes the same amount of courage to have a conversation there as it does with a fellow actor. The other part of that equation is the types of shows that I would say yes to. And I actually love playing the bad guy. It's my favorite thing to do. Because I think playing the quote unquote bad guy well requires an understanding of the human nature and the human experience, and requires a depth of acting that is maybe not as difficult for me in playing the good guy,
especially as Jekyll and Hyde.
Right,
yeah.
right. What I didn't play Declan and Hyde. I was
no?
I was a different character in that. Yeah, but
that's right. You did say that.
But like in Titanic, I played Ismay, who was a real historic character. He was the one that owned the company that built the Titanic, and he was and he survived the sinking of it, and was definitely vilified in the press afterwards. And to that end, villains. Real people that are villainized do not see themselves as the bad guy.
Right.
And so there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of depth of character to that. So all that to say is I like to play the villain. And it's important for that person to be seen by the audience as a villain. because there is good and bad in the world. There is black and white. There is good and bad in the world. And so if there's a story that is a redemptive story and I can help tell that story by being the person that gets their comeuppance at the end,
Right.
then I like to be a part of that. But there are some stories, and I'm not going to list them here, but there are, when I'm considering a show to audition for or a role that I've been offered, even though there might be some things in it that I disagree with, if ultimately good prevails and evil is seen as evil, then I will have a tendency to say yes to it. Probably even more so than some of my other Christian brothers and sisters who are in the performing arts.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously your faith has probably been challenged a lot in those areas. What is the biggest way in which your faith has been challenged within your career?
Well, I mean, I think that in one sense, and I'm not sure if this is the answer you're looking for, but in one sense, to have a career as a performing artist takes more faith than I think any other career, because for a Christian in the performing arts, because you have to trust that God is sovereign and that the work that you're doing, as you hand that off to him, he will use it for your good and his glory. And especially if you're going to be in the situation where you're going to have to be saying no to things that that the world's going to be like, how on earth did you say no to that? Like, that's a huge role. Like, you could become a star if you...
Right.
I've not had that problem, for the record, but I have, like my friend Ben that I was talking about earlier. He has said no to really major TV shows that he just felt like I can't portray that character because he does evil things that don't get punished. And so it takes faith. It takes faith to be a performer, no matter what. It takes a lot of faith to be a Christian performer because you have to say no to things. You might choose to say no to things that other people would say yes to. And you're really building a career. Like it's job after job after job after job that gives you a career. And so I would say just being in that field in general, I am grateful that I didn't have to do that to raise a family. You know, I had a steady job with health insurance and a steady income. I mean, I'm a professor, so it's not like I'm a wealthy person, but I was able to feed my family for all these years. And now my youngest daughter is a junior, finishing her junior year here. And so we'll get her through college and we'll see what God does after that. But I'm not gonna drop everything and become a professional actor.
Right.
Because I don't have the faith for that. You know, maybe someday I will. I had the faith to run for office, so who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, that takes a lot of faith to run for office.
Yeah.
So our time is kind of closing down because you said you only had an hour.
Yeah, right.
Do you want to introduce your pieces?
Yeah, sure. So these are a couple of recent projects that I've done, and let me see, which one are you doing first?
Unfortunately, they're not named. There's video 1 and video 2.
Here, let me see. If you do...
Go back. So
okay,
video 1.
Video 1. So this is a project that I did exactly a year ago. A friend of mine named Tyler Hoover is a composer and writer, and he's written a new musical called The Prodigal.
And that was on my servant stage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
Servant Stage did a staged reading of it. And this is one of the songs. So Henry, it's about a farmer up in upstate New York who has 2 sons, and one wants to stay and run the farm. The other one wants to go into business in New York. And you can imagine what it's actually based on, the musical story, right? Yeah. So this is the opening. This is Henry's opening song, my character's opening song, and he's talking about just how great it is to be, you know, working the land that he grew up on. So here's a little snippet of his song, Where I Belong, I think is the name of it.
Do you think I built all this just to see my son haul ropes for a living?
I think you built it so you wouldn't have to see me at all.
The foolish son believes.
Here we go again.
That he could find a better way.
Always the same old
So this is a different song.
Oh, is it?
Sorry. Let me set up this one since we have this one queued up. So this is from the musical Amazing Grace. And this was the first regional production of it. And did I send the wrong video with the wrong title?
They literally came in as video both.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So if you want to play that one again that you just played.
Right.
So this is Captain Newton, who is the father of John Newton, true historical figures, both of them. John Newton wrote Amazing Grace, and this is the beginning of the musical. Captain Newton had a whole fleet of ships, and his son, John Newton, was a scallywag, and this is their argument in the opening scene.
Do you think I built all this just to see my son haul ropes for a living?
I think you built it so you wouldn't have to see me at all.
The foolish son believes
Here we go again.
that he could find a better way.
Always the same old
That
story.
only the young can perceive.
When will you listen?
That they must obey.
You don't know what I need to be truly alive.
You don't know
I
what
need to
you're
sail
asking
where the
for,
strongest
buddy.
survive.
I have been there.
Find my
Don't tell me my
way.
business. It's not enough to dream about your life the way you wish it could be.
So let me prove I am a man who can stand against the sea. You will see that to be truly alive,
You don't know
I
what
need to
you're
sail where
asking
the
for,
strongest
buddy.
survive.
There is more
And
to
find my
this world
way
than
to
what
the
you
wind
believe.
and the spray.
Yes, I
to
am
the life
still
I call my own.
When will you see
It's up to me.
I know what you need
to be truly
Amazing Grace is truly a wonderful story.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the actual story behind it, because John Newton, that's the guy, right?
Right.
He was a slave trader, wasn't he?
Was.
Yeah,
He
this
was.
this complete 180 of I forget exactly what happened to him that made him do the 180.
A variety of things, and there's actually a wonderful book called Amazing Grace about his whole story. But yeah, when he says that Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, he really meant it.
He was
Yes.
like the scourge
He
of
was
the
a
earth.
wretch. He was
Yes.
an absolute wretch. That project was really neat because there was several LBC students in that performance.
it happened here, didn't it?
It happened. They performed it here, yeah. And even though it's servant stage production, they performed it here. And the writer of the show was involved in the production and came and met with our students. And
That's fun.
you know, a Broadway composer was here on campus. That was a neat experience.
Well, there's been many. Snarky Puppy was once here.
A Snarky Puppy was not here, actually.
Oh, no?
No, I wanted to bring them, but they didn't come. Ranky Tanky was here.
Ranky Tanky.
Ranky Tanky was here, and there was like, I don't know, 80 people in the audience, and then like a month later, they won their first Grammy Award.
Yeah. That was the story I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's another facet of my life as a presenter. Like, you know, I'm the head of the Arts and Culture series here, and that's another thing that I stumbled into because somebody asked me to do. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And
If you're willing to be on again, I would love to talk about the Trust Performing Arts and how you get these giant guests.
Yeah.
that come
We'll
in
do
like
that.
Mike
We'll do that again.
Mike Block, Sandeep Das.
yes,
The two people that recognize my laugh in the audience. An incredible moment for me, I must say.
That's awesome.
Well, this next piece is actually what we're going to...
The one that I already set up. Yes. And it's I love what and you know too, because we've talked about your new stuff. I love helping bring new work to light.
Mm-hmm.
To life.
To life, both.
To life. And so both as a conductor and as a performer, one of my favorite things to do is staged readings because you get to be the first person to play that character.
Mm-hmm.
And actually with Chris that wrote Amazing Grace, right before I played this character, I went up and did a staged reading in New York of a piece that he's writing about William Penn. And So
Like the William Penn News, is that with
yeah,
Pennsylvania?
right, yeah. So Chris Smith, that wrote Amazing Grace, is writing a new musical about William Penn, and I got to be a part of a stage reading up in New York about that. And then this one that you're about to play was several months ago. But then also a friend of mine from Seattle who wrote a new musical had a stage reading in New York, and I got to go up and be a part of that. And it's great because it pulls together my skills and my weaknesses. My skills are sight reading and learning music really quickly, picking up on a character and creating that character. I get to be the first person to create that character. And then stage reading, you do it with music in hand, so I don't have to memorize.
Right, yeah.
So this one that you are going to play now is from the new musical Prodigal, and this was the stage reading of that.
The rustling wheat sounds like the ocean tide as the hay sweet smell comes dancing on the air. And while some might pine for something more, I'm satisfied. I know there's nothing in this world that can compare. Let the world outside forget me, I don't care. Give me hills that roll forever. Give me rivers that run wild. Leave me breathless with the wonder of a child. Give me tender earth beneath me. Give me roots secure and strong. Keep your trinkets, keep your fame, give me a song. Though the greener grass may thrill, it won't last long. So long as sunshine grows the grain and providence provides the rain, I know that I am right where I belong.
And that was a little snippet from the Prodigal.
From Prodigal, yeah.
Prodigal.
Isn't that a beautiful song?
It is a really beautiful song.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how many times somebody can make something catchy.
Right. Yeah. And that whole musical is bound for something great. Tyler is a really wonderful composer of melodies, especially. He's also a good orchestrator, which you didn't really hear in that.
That's a double.
Yeah. That's not always don't always go
No,
hand in hand, as you know.
Not at all.
And so it was just a real honor to be the first person to play that character and to sing that song in front of an audience.
Yeah, that sounds like a powerful song.
Yeah, and I've actually used that song for auditions since then. So
I believe it. Well, Dr. Bigley, this has been a wonderful time.
it has. Thank you. Corey.
Well, we're gonna round out our time on the radio. Where can people find you and support you?
If they're on social media, it's at RF Biggs. My middle name is Franklin, so RF Biggs.
That's Instagram. And
Instagram.
You have a Facebook page.
Facebook. Yeah.
Robert Bigley.
Yep.
I have
a website, robertbigley.com.
And nothing on Spotify.
Nothing on Spotify. No.
I interview a lot of people and stuff on Spotify.
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe someday, but not
maybe
yet.
one day.
Not yet.
Well, we're gonna go back to regular radio. This has been Corey Rosen with the Story Podcast. Thank you for listening.